Number 10. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman Hush. I actually really love this story, but it's also kinda out there, especially when you consider it has its own sort of theme song and a very creepy tone. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse Hush, Bruce Wayne is the one who becomes a version of the Hush character. It would be more accurate though to say that he becomes a version of Hush and Batman if they were kinda like combined together. Here, Thomas Elliot instead becomes a rich billionaire playboy and also corrupt senator, allying himself with Talia al Ghul. He manages to make it so that Bruce was locked away in Arkham Asylum. Despite feeling slightly guilty about doing this to his childhood friend, overall Elliot is pretty okay with the way Bruce is imprisoned and treated there. However, after faking his death, Bruce Wayne manages to escape Arkham and becomes Elliot's worst nightmare. And just for a fun fact, he doesn't go by Hush in this one though, he's the Silenced. Shh. Get it? Still like Hush. Number 9. JLA the Nail. This is an Elseworld story that centers around a literal nail. The nail in question is one that punches Martha and Jonathan Kent's tire, thereby preventing them from intercepting and adopting little baby Kal-El, who would grow up to become Superman. Or at least he would have grown up to become Superman if that's what happened. In this world, instead, there is seemingly no Superman. As such, Lex Luthor is successful in making the JLA a band of outlaws. Instead of them being celebrated heroes, they're kind of considered to be somewhat criminal, despite of course their noble intentions. What I will say is at least a lot of this artwork is pretty good. Most of the limited series ends up being kinda dull, save for a few scenes and plot points. The parts that I found the most interesting were one where Selina gets therapy while sexy posing on a desk, another being a fight involving Joker with anti-grav mitts versus Batman, which takes place after Joker has successfully killed Batgirl and Robin. Batman ends up broken as a result of the Joker's actions here. We later learn that the Superman of this universe is basically a very sensitive Jimmy Olsen who is bonded with the remaining traces of Kal-El's DNA found in this crash-landed spaceship. Jimmy doesn't like it when people laugh at him. He ends up in a fight with the real Kal-El, another interesting part of the 3-issue series, who it turns out was adopted by the Amish, hence why he never became a hero, as he preferred to stay within his community. So we get an Amish Superman, and then we also get Jimmy Olsen Superman, but he's pretty much evil. Also, what is that costume he's wearing? Sorry Jimmy, I didn't mean to laugh at you. Sorry.
Number 8. The Magic Lantern. So take Shaggy from Scooby-Doo and give him the powers of Green Lantern and you've got the Magic Lantern of Earth 47. When it's groovy, when it's grim, we hum the living guru's hymn. When other lanterns lose their shit, we keep the Magic Lantern lit. I'm sure it's not the only thing that's lit. I wish I could just make this point a bunch of the stoner Green Lantern quotes. Hostility is for squares. Get with the blueprint. Are we groovy? Or do I gotta kick your non-Euclidean alien butts into the galaxy next door? The Magic Lantern is the Green Lantern to the Earth 47 Justice League, known as the Love Syndicate, whose members include Sunshine Superman, Shooting Star instead of Batman, Speed Freak, Brother Power, and the Geek. And they first appeared in Animal Man number 23, and were expanded upon in the Multiversity Guidebook. And every time I see them, I just wanna be a part of it. Number 7. Danny the Street. Yeah, no, I think this is the wildest concept for a hero I have ever heard of. In case you didn't clue in, or for that matter, actually didn't believe it, Danny the Street is a living sentient street who can teleport to any city in the world. He was first introduced in Doom Patrol Volume 2, number 35 in 1990, and his main purpose and drive in this world is to bring happiness to those who inhabit whatever city he is currently at, giving those who have nowhere to go a place to rest their heads. It's nice. He likes to cross-dress and dress himself in nice pink frilly decorations on some of his buildings, including weapon stores. He eventually became the headquarters of Doom Patrol. At one point, he grew to be Danny the World, and then he was deconstructed down to just Danny the Brick, and was even just the humble Danny the Alley at one point. Even saying that sentence makes me feel like, what am I doing with my life? I'm talking about awesome sentient streets. Mom would be proud. Number 6. David Dibble. David Dibble dibble-dabbled in some kind of dubious scientific debauchery which decidedly turned him into Dig Dabby. Turned him into Big Baby, otherwise known as Behemoth. Hailing from Earth 8, where there are characters that seem to be DC's parody for Marvel characters. As part of the Retaliators, genius alternate name for the Avengers, Behemoth is basically the Hulk, turning from a scientist into an extremely strong monster. Only The unfortunately named David Dibble, instead of turning into a green savage beast, turns into a giant blue mega baby. While he used to have a dumbed down intelligence when transformed, he has managed to recover his intelligence over time, just like how Marvel's Green Goliath did the same. The baby part of this is probably the strangest part, but it does reflect how Hulk basically acts like a tantruming toddler when he transforms. Number 5. Etrigan, or Etrigan, or Etrigon, or Etrigan. He could be considered really cool or really weird, honestly. Etrigan rocketed to an Earth of eternal twilight from the doomed planet of Camelot. Who does that sound like? Maybe another hero who rocketed to Earth from another planet that starts with a K? They sound similar because Etrigan is an alternate version of Superman with quote-unquote overnatural abilities. From Earth 13, a planet of the supernatural and occult. Etrigan fights evil in Merlin's name alongside the League of Shadows as the Super Demon. Together, the League of Shadows faced off against an invasion of super vampires. And later, Etrigan became part of the Supermen of the Multiverse, targeted by prophecy, and allies with them to come up with a plan to free the other alternate Supermen. A demon Superman is weird, but he won't be the weirdest alternate Superman to hit this list. Number 4. Yankee Poodle. I think I could effectively choose any one of the characters from the animal universe of Earth-C for this point, but of all the characters a part of the Zoo crew, Ali Kadabra, Captain Carrot, Little Cheese, none really make me say, what? Quite like Yankee Poodle. Gossip journalist Rova Barkett, an anthropomorphic poodle, see what I did there? Would moonlight as Yankee Poodle, a superhero with the powers of magnetic manipulation that for some reason allowed her to shoot semi-solidified electromagnetic blue-colored stars with her right hand, push things away, and generate red and white stripes with her left hand in order to bring things to her. I don't know. If she put these powers together though, she can generate highly destructive magno-blasts. But for me, the best use of her power is she could travel by forming a ramp of stripes in front of her while propelling herself along it by shooting stars behind her. No, I didn't make any of that up. Just so we're clear on that. Number 3. Robert Rogers. This one has got a fun little twist. So, back in 2002, DC teamed up with Stan Lee of Marvel Comics fame, and together they released the Just Imagine series, which is basically, why don't we let Stan Lee come and make a bunch of characters with the ideas of DC characters? It is actually honestly a great idea. One of those characters ended up being Robert Rogers from Just Imagine Shazam #1. And yes, he is Stan Lee's Shazam. When I tell you he is absolutely nothing like the regular Shazam, I ain't kidding. I mean, other than saying Shazam to activate his powers. For starters, he is not a kid. He is actually an agent with Interpol, and he is assigned to the tough agent Carla Noral, who together go to India to hunt down criminal Gunga Khan. Secondly, he is empowered by the wizard Merlin to hunt down Morgana Le Fay. And finally, when he yells the word Shazam, he transforms into a giant, hairy, red-fanged creature with a necklace of bones. Gosh, I love Stan Lee. Number 2. Milkman Man. The DC Universe Wiki says that Milkman Man is an imperfect copy of Superman. Excuse me, DC Wiki? This is an improved copy of Superman. All that calcium, strongest bones you've ever seen, I bet. In JLA/Doom Patrol special, the Doom Patrol has discovered that an interdimensional corporation called Retco has been stealing stories, reconfiguring them, and repackaging them for new markets. Retco has embedded itself into the current continuity, using the radioactive milk of psychic cows to quell the more dangerous impulses of the Justice League and turn them into heroes safe for the masses. That is literally the quote from the official summary. I am not even joking. Milkman Man has all the same powers as the famous Kryptonian superhero, only he's a milkman, and central part of the Community League of Rhode Island, a sinister group of pleasant-spoken normal folks. Please just do yourself the favor of reading this story and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Number 1. KFC. Okay, it's weird enough that we have Colonel Sanders in the mainline continuity, but after his adversary Colonel Sanders takes the memory of all but the second of KFC's 11 herbs and spices from Sanders' brain, he is visited by Colonel Arla Sanders of Earth 11, who relays some information. 1. Apparently, every Colonel Sanders variant in the multiverse is close with the Flash of that universe, which is weird. Number 2, she remembers a different herb and or spice from the recipe, meaning every alternate Colonel will remember a different herb or spice, which is weirder. And number 3, with the help of her Flash and her cosmic treadmill, they're going across the multiverse to form the multiversal team of Colonel Sanders, which is the weirdest part. There's Colonel Gaslight, Colonel from Kingdom Come, the future Colonel Ladd, Bizarro Colonel, Teen Titans Colonel, Comrade Sanders, and a Wild West Sanders. But my absolute favorite, and one that should make absolutely no sense, and if you really think about it, is kind of sick and twisted, is the anthropomorphic Chicken Sanders from the post-apocalyptic Earth 51, whose second line is literally Bok! Appetite. What the bok?
Number 10, Shame of Thrones. Weird, but in a great way. Because for this story, we are heading over to the alternate reality belonging to the Little Marvels. Over in the Infinity comic Giant Size Little Marvels issue number 4, we get a glimpse into Dr. Von Doom's lair and his evil game night, which apparently happens every other Tuesday, according to Magneto. However, the whole issue consists of a tangent where the invited villains complain that Doom is the only one who gets to sit in a throne while they game, whereas they're all relegated, to normal seats. Doom argues it is because he's the most accomplished ruler among them all, and that he answers to no one. However, his mom has something to say about that. Vicky? Number 9. What if Sergeant Fury had fought World War II in outer space? I was literally going to just say that to introduce the story, but then of course it's already been said because that's the name of the story. In this comic, we get to see what it would be like if, in addition to the general opposition during World War II, there were also aliens involved, who wanted to, of course, invade Earth. As such, the Howling Commandos take to the stars to fight against German World War II soldiers in addition to alien invaders known as the Baytans. Did I also mention that Nick Fury is still smoking throughout this entire issue, even while he's wearing a space helmet? While some things would change in this scenario, it seems others would remain the same. How do you even smoke in a space helmet? That seems like it would be terrible.
Number 8. Prometheus. Heroes and villains with no powers always seem to be some of the most powerful. It's strange. Take Prometheus. After seeing his criminal parents pass at the hands of police, he vows a vendetta on any form of justice. A vendetta that would push him to be able to defeat the whole Justice League single-handedly. He shot the Martian Manhunter with a dart that turned his power against him and set him on fire. He infected Steel's armor with a computer virus which commanded the suit to damage the Watchtower. He hypnotized the Huntress into unconsciousness. He attacked Green Lantern with a neural chaff that rendered his ring useless. He trapped the Angel Zariel in limbo. He tricked the Flash into believing that he had planted motion-sensitive devices that would explode if the Flash used his powers. And he defeated Batman in hand-to-hand combat. That's probably the most nuts thing on this list. His origin is very similar to Batman's. After his parents were dispatched from the mortal plane, he would travel the globe training and becoming the ultimate combat machine. But he also attended the top universities, learning as much as he could. He eventually sets up a base in the Ghost Zone. And from here, he built an armor that could download information on any opponent's fighting style, kind of reminiscent of Taskmaster's ability. He is kind of crazy capable, and his vendetta on any kind of justice plus his Batman likeness just makes him kind of a little strange to me, but also terrifying. Number 7. Earth 17 Superman. On Earth 17, superheroes are a product of government experiments. The Superman of this universe, Overman, was the first, with the other superheroes being spawns of his DNA. Now that may be weird, but that ain't the weird part. He also doesn't really seem like a villain yet, does he? Well, after contracting a disease, contracting a disease from another person, yes, like that kind of disease, he goes insane and destroys the Justice League and reduces his world to rubble. He then gets his filthy paws on a doomsday boom boom that he intends to use on Earth 17 and wipe it out. The Crisis on Infinite Earths destroyed this reality, just like DC tried to destroy such a naughty Superman story, even having different iterations of Overmans who were different, like an Overman who became allied with the Axis powers in World War II. But the internet never forgets DC Comics, and people like me exist to remind everyone of the things you published into this world. I am sorry, sort of. Thanks for the content. Number 6. Mr. Mxyzptlk. Look, I talked about Batmite when discussing heroes, and he wasn't even really a hero, so how can I not mention the first 5th dimensional imp in this video? Plus he's got a fun name. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a reality warping imp obsessed with Superman, who, just like his rival Batmite did with Batman, simply seeks to annoy the hell out of Superman and just prove he is smarter than him. Which is good, because he has a level of power that in other hands could cause the entire end of the multiverse. More on that later though. He can do almost anything imaginable if he wishes it. And his only weakness really is being convinced or tricked into saying his name backwards to send him back to the 5th dimension, which, if you're trying to say it correctly, is honestly a superpower in and of itself. Clitopizixum. I got it. Number 5, Emperor Joker. Mr. Mxyzptlk has an extreme level of power, like I said. Also, like I said, if this power fell into the wrong hands, it could be potentially reality ending. Now, what hands could be worse than the psychotic hands of Batman's arch nemesis, the Joker? Well, that's exactly who gets the power in the Emperor Joker storyline. Mr. Mix gets bored and wants to give Joker 1% of his power, just to see the tricks Joker is able to pull off. But instead, the Joker tricks Mr. Mxyzptlk into giving him 99.9% of his power instead. Joker uses this power to rewrite all of reality to become his sick, twisted dream world. He eats the whole population of China out of a Chinese food container box. He keeps everyone stuck in a time loop, including Batman, who he introduces to the afterlife over and over every day forever. Oh, and he also turned Flash into a slow-moving Abyss Man. Superman, the Spectre, and Mr. Mxyzptlk, being the only ones who can remember the former world, tried to do something about this all-powerful Joker. But that's just the problem. He is all-powerful. He destroys all of reality, but he can't bring himself to destroy Batman fully. And because of this, he loses control of his power, allowing the Spectre and Mr. Mix to steal it back and fix all of reality. This story it's pretty nuts. Number 4, Condiment King. When the villainous Condiment King came on the scene, it was literally on the scene, as he appeared in the animated Batman TV show from 1992. One of the best, honestly. Condiment King was Buddy Stantler, a comedian who was brainwashed by the Joker into becoming a villain who wields condiment squirters and viciously horrible puns. I knew you'd catch up to me sooner or later. How I've relished this meeting. Come, Batman, let's see if you can cut the mustard. Diabolical stuff like that. The puns get even worse in the comics, with his real name becoming a pun on its own. Mitchell Mayo. He isn't taken seriously by anyone. His weapons don't actually project his condiments at a speed fast enough to do anyone harm, but they sure are inconvenient, leaving nasty stains in your superhero costume. On the other hand, he does potentially have the ability to be able to cause anaphylactic shock if he is battling someone with an allergy, right? Number 3, Monsieur Mallah and the Brain. Monsieur Mallah is described in his wiki as a militant, super-intelligent French gorilla. The Brain, on the other hand, is described as a genius French scientist and master criminal who exists as a disembodied brain. So, those two descriptions are interesting enough on their own, but when I tell you the French militant gorilla and the disembodied brain are an item together, I think that just elevates the whole thing to a different level. Together, they are the primary leaders of the Brotherhood of Evil, who were villains to both the Doom Patrol and the Teen Titans. They both appeared in Doom Patrol 86 in 1964. Now, Brain was once a scientist who experimented on the gorilla who would become Mallah, which would increase Mallah's intelligence. An accident injured Ernst, and Mallah had to remove Ernst's brain and place it in a technological holding thingamajig to keep him alive and be able to communicate. The two are almost always together, with Mallah carrying around the brain. Hey, look, I don't judge. You find love where you find love, but as a concept for supervillains who lead a team of supervillains, you gotta admit, it's pretty odd to say the least. Number 2, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. Let me repeat that for all those in the back who may not have heard. Animal, Vegetable, Mineral, Man. I don't really have a problem with 2/3 of that. I just get really hung up on the vegetable part. Is that weird? Sven Larsson is the man who claims that title. And while it is a completely ridiculous one, it is actually pretty fitting. Sven fell victim to an experiment of his own making, which allows him to transform into any animal, vegetable, or mineral, either partially or fully, although he very obviously likes to do a bit of all three at the same time, which is an odd choice, but hey, I just work here. Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man first appeared in Doom Patrol 89 in August 1964, and he is an enemy to the team, which makes sense given their weirdness. But Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man here has a vendetta against the Doom Patrol's leader, the Chief, who he believed once stole an invention of his. An invention that, funnily enough, is the only way of stopping Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. But he didn't even do that, so no. Look, it gets weirder and weirder, but I gotta move on. Before I do though, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to get out of my system one more time. Number 1, Mr. Mind. I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as eating years and events from this universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then, Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day he was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he is trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't even actually end up ending him. They just trapped him. This all-powerful mind-controlling 7-inch long worm.
Number 10. Undead Brother Voodoo. This version of Brother Voodoo hails from Earth 666, ooh spooky, where he is part of the Undead Avengers team. While still technically a hero, he's also still technically a monster. The Avengers of Earth 666 are all considered members of the Undead, with each of them technically being some kind of monster, some version of undead, if you will. Jericho Drum in this universe appears to be some kind of poltergeist-like ghost from his appearance here. I don't know if he's specifically a poltergeist, I just think of him that way because of his glowiness. I don't know, it reminds me of the movie Poltergeist. This team, including the ghostly Brother Voodoo, make their first appearance in issue number 33 of the Secret Avengers series, where they tangle with Secret Avengers members Captain Britain and Clint Barton's Hawkeye of Earth 616.
Number 9. Groot. Before he was the mainstay lovable space ent in Guardians of the Galaxy with a raccoon-shaped compatriot, Groot was actually an evil, monstrous tree. He first appeared in Tales to Astonish number 13 in 1960. The tagline in the comic itself was, quote, "Where Groot walks, death follows." He was also entirely obscure before being thrust into the pop culture fandom when Marvel decided to turn their C-list team, Guardians of the Galaxy, into a phenomenally massive success. He was originally a throwaway monster, and his original comic, before 2012, was worth $2,868, which isn't small by any means, but after the movies premiered, it was worth $19,000. In the comic, Groot belongs to a species called Floral Colossus, although they're also just called Groots too. During his early life, the Floral Colossi rule over Planet X, and Groot was an outcast amongst his people. He became friends with the inferior species called the Undergrowth, a fungi-like species also on the planet. Groot is eventually forced to flee his homeworld after he kills another Colossus while defending an Undergrowth. Before the movies, Groot also appeared in 2 other comics, one being The Incredible Hulk, where he more so resembles his original appearance rather than the huggable tree we know today. The Hulk comic released in 1976, and then lastly he was in Annihilation Conquest number 6 in 2008. It was the first appearance of Groot as his modern rendition, smaller, skinnier, a bit more approachable than the Godzilla-style tree we knew before. He also joined the Guardians of the Galaxy lineup in this comic alongside Star-Lord, Drax the Destroyer, and Rocket Raccoon.
Number 8. The Final Showdown. Mutant X really had a whole series, but for the purpose of this list, we're just going to focus on one of its story arcs that takes place in the alternate reality of Earth 1298, as it was a 32 issue series, so I mean a lot happened. The basic idea here though is that instead of X Factor, we have a non-government or corporate mutant team known as the Six. Havoc in this reality ends up with Madeline Pryor, and the two of them have a child together named Scott. Yeah, it's a little different than 616. Here Maddie does become the Goblin Queen, but like how we have the Phoenix Force, she becomes infected with the Goblin Force and its influence, turning her dark. Initially, Maddie is actually known by her hero mantle, Marvel Woman. As such, Havoc and their son Scotty must fight against the Goblin Queen. After a long build-up where no one is able to stop Madeline, it's revealed that Scotty is able to due to his insane level of power. He rids his mom of the Goblin influence, but also banishes her in the process. Don't worry though, just like in main continuity, Maddie would return here as well. I believe she gets banished to like the center of the earth. It's a weird place, but it's a pretty good place, I would say. Mutant X, should you read it? Nah, I think you should read it. I think you could read it. I don't know if you should, but you definitely could. Number 7. What if the X-Men had lost Inferno? I love this comic, mainly for the panel at the end where Alicia Masters' Storm whispers to her newborn babe, "I love you, baby." I think it might be one of my all-time favorite panels ever, actually. But there is lots of weird stuff to love from this issue, including the fact that Doctor Strange and Rachel Summers also randomly deliver this baby at the end. In this What If, we imagine what would have gone down if the Goblin Queen hadn't been defeated and instead was victorious. One of the things that would have come about? Her unleashing the beast within Wolverine and turning him into a villain who devours babies. Also, Rachel becomes trapped and later freed from being a bridal mannequin? I think that's a thing that happens here. That's definitely looks like what's happening. Also, I love Rachel as a bridal mannequin. And how after she's like, "Thanks, my face hurt, too much smiling." Oh, by the way, Doctor Strange, who frees Rachel, he also gets to wear a cool eye patch in this world. Why? Because he's Doctor Strange. He gets an eye patch. I like it. Everyone should have eye patches. I want an alternate reality where everyone has an eye patch. Number 6. Ghost Racers. This is a series that comes from the Battle World pocket dimension that was governed by God Emperor Doom. Just like we had the Thor Corps, here we have the Ghost Racers, which is basically like its own category of racing, creating an organization or like even a company out of that set form, like NASCAR. The Ghost Racers are made up of various ghost riders who of course race one another for Battle World's entertainment. And of course, so wealthy fans can ideally make some funds on the wins and losses of each race. Although all the riders are pitted against one another, and eventually Arcade, who is in charge of them, sends them to take down Robbie Reyes, the current racing champion, eventually they all remember what things were like before Battle World, and they decide to rise up against those that are controlling them. Which I love. Also, I just love the idea of like just a group of racers that are just all ghost riders, and they're like, we race each other for fun. This is what we do now. Ghost Racers. Number 5. What if Wolverine battled Conan the Barbarian? In issue number 16 of the second volume of What If, we get to see what would happen if Wolverine somehow came to the time and lands of Conan and the duo ended up fighting one another. That's basically what ifs are for, right? Just seeing people that would not normally fight, and who will win. In order to revive his love, Conan is asked to bring another soul in her place to sacrifice. The soul that he decides to bring is actually Red Sonja, so that's not great because Wolverine, having fought with Red Sonja previously, had basically kind of fallen for her, and he does not agree with what is going on because of his own sentiment. He wants to rescue Sonja, probably because she reminds him of Jean Grey. Honestly, it's pretty weird to me that no one has ever said that like Jean Grey and Mary Jane Watson look similar, considering people have both thought that they looked like Red Sonja in the comics. So do all women with red hair just look the same? Is that the implication here? Or do all three of these women actually closely resemble one another, but we never really acknowledge that like Jean and MJ like look very similar, like weirdly similar. And Red Sonja's in there too. It's like the trifecta of like redheads. In the end, Wolverine takes Conan's hand in a fight that the two have, and the two end up permanently swapping places, with Conan returning to Wolverine's home reality and Wolverine staying in Conan's age. Wolverine finds a happy ending with Sonja. Conan, not so much. He like sees Jean and then she goes full Dark Phoenix, and then that's the end of that. Number 4. Age of Ultron vs. Marvel Zombies. Another even more bizarre story coming at us from God Emperor Doom's Battle World. This comic was all about the world that existed outside, actually, of Doom's Battle World, known as the Deadlands. And if you didn't like living by Doom's rules, well, you certainly wouldn't like this. But this might be where you would end up. Defy Doom, and this could be a place that he put you. Age of Ultron vs. Marvel Zombies explored these Deadlands that were watched over by Annihilus' insect creatures. And yeah, it's about as wild as it sounds. Around every corner, with the flip of every page, awaits more gore, folks losing their heads, and monsters, monsters, monsters! I think in a world of zombies versus robots, no one really wins. Is that the takeaway here? Also, because this is Battle World, there are lots of appearances of random multiversal characters, such as young Hank Pym, who's kinda like the main character of this, from the past alternate Earth of 51920, and the Pilgrim Punisher of Earth 15513. At least he looks like a Pilgrim Punisher. I like that he still has his skull shirt though. So he's like got the hat, he's got the coat, and he's like, Still got this like very 80s style looking logo and shirt. Number 3, Ruins. Ruins is just the most messed up kind of weird that a multiversal story can be. This comic offers a much darker take on what the world could be like with superpowers. Of course, it is a story by Garth Ennis, so yes, darker is definitely where we're going here. As brutal as Ruins is, well, I kind of love how dark and awful it gets. The series deals with the less fantastical, more literal interpretations of powers and their uses, and how less hopeful civilians and government agencies might react or take advantage of said superpowers. In this world, Quicksilver is just a torso with his limbs moving too fast, causing him problems, so they all had to be amputated. At least that's what's implied. Or they just didn't like that he went fast, so they amputated them. The Hulk is an irradiated pile of tumors, which ultimately dies under the weight of his own mutation, and the Silver Surfer ends up driven mad by his own cosmic existence, taking his own life by clawing his own chest open while floating through space. This is a bleak and disturbing world filled with pain and suffering. Not heroes in capes. That's part of what makes it great, and part of what makes it weird, and part of what makes it horrifying. Number 2. What if Conan the Barbarian were stranded in the 20th century? And if you thought Wolverine and Conan fighting was weird, it just gets a whole lot weirder with this issue. However, I guess I should say that it gets a whole lot less weird, as the previous Conan What If we talked about was actually from the second volume of the series, as opposed to this issue that we're talking about, which is actually from the original series. In issue 43 of What If, we learn what would happen if Conan, instead of just coming to the modern day, was stranded there and stuck there. This What If was actually inspired by another fan favorite What If featured in issue 13. What if Conan the Barbarian walked the earth today? In this story, because Conan never gets teleported by lightning home, he becomes a criminal. Because, I mean, why not, I guess? He's confused, he doesn't know what he's doing. However, after creating a gang and getting into some trouble, he attracts the attention of the Avengers. But Captain America sees more than just a brute, and believes Conan is just misguided, but he has a hero's heart, truly. He offers him a spot on the Avengers, and we actually never learn what Conan decides because the issue ends. Talk about a cliffhanger. I don't know if we'll ever come back. Do we ever come back to that? It's like, will I call him? Won't I call him? And then the Watcher's like, well, I would tell you, but I can't because that's a story for another time. Maybe if we ever do it. Number 1, Marvel. Even saying the title sounds just like an experience. I don't even know where to start with Marvel because this continuity feels so just like non-existent here. There's no through line. The story is meant to be about Kal-AOL, a play on Kal-El, a kid from the future who is sent back in time to save the world and to save himself. In the future, you see the world is about to end. Fortunately though, that doesn't happen. While Al doesn't have any powers, he somehow is moderately successful as a hero. After the world doesn't end, his parents send the time machine they originally sent him through back in time to pick him up. But Al decided to travel back in time to the beginning instead. There he meets maybe God, and also learns that Wolverine evolved from an otter and dinosaurs can talk. With every issue in this story, you ask yourself, how can it get any weirder? And then it somehow does that. Also, what's up with these covers? They're almost completely unrelated to the plot of the comics. I guess sexy ladies sell comics, and so who needs a plot was the thought process with Marvel. At least with the covers. And maybe with the inside of it as well, because I don't really know what the plot is about.
Number 10, the Wonder Twins. Oh, super friends. Sometimes you just introduce characters that are only a good idea in a kids show. Jaina and Zan are alien twin sister and brother from the planet Exor, who have these super cool sounding power rings that activate when they fist bump and say Wonder Twins power activate. It sounds so cool, and it sorta is. Jaina can turn into any animal she chooses with her power. That's neat, but it's not as spectacular for Zan, who can only turn into water in one of its forms. He can turn into H2O, steam, or ice. Honestly, I could see it being used in some pretty cool ways, which is why they are so high up on this list, but still rather unique. Number 9. Doll Man. Alright, so we take the G.I. Joe toy and Jada Pinkett Smith and we will make them superheroes. With the power to shrink down to 6 inches tall while retaining the strength of a full-grown man, Daryl Dane, Doll Man, with his partner Martha Roberts, Doll Girl, is a founding member of the Freedom Fighters. He would fight crime during the 1940s and in World War II. That was when he first appeared in All-Star Squadron number 60 in August of 1986. More recently, the power of size manipulation had a psychological effect on him, causing causing him to be confined to a mental institution and then trapped in his 6-inch size with other soldiers of similar height in a miniature world. Until, get this, they fuse together as a mega monster form which just looks and sounds terrifying. Anyone ever seen Toy Soldiers? I loved that movie back in the day. I am Archer, emissary of the Gorgonites. No, I'm Adam, emissary of Top 10 Nerd. And if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to smack that like button. It helps us know that you like us, right? I don't know.
Number 8. Flash Thompson. Well, we have an excellent Flash Thompson currently in the MCU with Tony Revolori, who does a great job of balancing his hatred for Peter Parker with his love of Spider-Man. There have been a few portrayals of the character that have come before him, so it's possible we could get a whole team of Flashes in the MCU if they all decided to show up from the multiverse. It all started with Joe Manganiello, who played Flash Thompson, school bully and original boyfriend of Mary Jane Watson in the Raimiverse. Also, fun fact, this was Manganiello's breakout role. I completely forgot about this until revisiting the films, and wow, I just think that's such a weirdly perfect casting for Flash Thompson. Following up Joe was Chris Zilka, who played the bully turned sensitive wannabe friend to Peter Parker in the Amazing Spider-Man series. I also really like Chris's portrayal of the Flash, so I'd also be cool with him showing up as well. Give me all of the Flashes. Number 7. Genki Lee. Another character that shows up in Into the Spider-Verse is Genki Lee, and this is definitely a character I would love to see also show up in the MCU, along with Miles of course. I don't think you can have Genki without Miles. In Into the Spider-Verse, Genki was not portrayed as being quite as close as he is to Miles in the comics, and that is part of the reason that I want to see these two pals together in the MCU. I want to see that awesome BFF connection. In the comics, Genki is Miles' best friend, who knows about his secret identity as Spider-Man. He hails from the alternate Earth of 1610, the Ultimate Universe, just like Miles. Hopefully where Miles goes, Genki will too, and hopefully that place that they're both headed is the MCU. Number 6. Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy is well known in the comics for being Peter's first ever love, and for many fans, his one true love. Personally, I'm a big shipper of Peter and MJ together, but you know, Peter and Gwen are still iconic and have a lot in common, and I respect that. In the Amazing Spider-Man series, Gwen Stacy was played by Emma Stone, who I absolutely love. Unfortunately, just like in the comics, Peter was unable to save Gwen at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and she died. Peter thought he had saved her, but learned that ultimately he was too late. He gave up being Spider-Man, but eventually returned to the mantle after listening to Gwen's valedictorian speech, which inspired him to become a hero once more. Emma Stone did an awesome job playing Gwen, and it would be really awesome to see her return and to see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man get to actually say goodbye to some version of her from the past or alternate future. Alternatively, I also wouldn't mind seeing Bryce Dallas Howard return to the role of Gwen, as she also played the character in the 2007 film Spider-Man 3. And I also just love Bryce Dallas Howard. She has done so much since then and has proven herself an amazing performer and an amazing director. Number 5. Spider-Gwen, aka Ghost Spider. Of course, this character doesn't come to us from any of the cinematic realities. Well, I mean, she is in Into the Spider-Verse, which is a film, so it is cinematic, but it is animated, so yeah. Either way, we can still get a live-action MCU version of Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider, as she's known currently in the comics. How cool would that be? Perhaps even someone who has played her before would be up for suiting up and rising to the challenge to take on Gwen as a superhero. Or perhaps we could even see a new performer take on the role and show up as a new character in the MCU, but a familiar character for those fans of Into the Spider-Verse or of the comics. Number 4. MJ. Alternate MJ in this sense. For this one, I am talking about the return of the great Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson, Peter's next door neighbor, high school crush, and true love. I love Zendaya as MJ, but that doesn't mean we can't have some alternates show up as well when the multiverse starts to open up, and I think that is where we're headed here. If that happens, then we could all of the sudden be seeing different MJs appearing. Who knows, maybe we'll even see Shailene Woodley's performance, as she apparently had her portrayal of the character cut from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Number 3. Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock appears in 2004 in the second Spider-Man film to come out of the Raimiverse, Spider-Man 2. There he was played by Alfred Molina. Although we haven't gotten the film yet, Molina appears to be reprising the role of Doc Ock and will appear in the MCU in Spider-Man No Way Home. He's spotted in the trailer, and aside from that, he has been rumored to be making a return almost since day one with this movie. Molina did himself confirm his return in an interview with Variety, and Zendaya, who plays MJ in the MCU, has also confirmed his return in an interview. We'll have to wait to see him show up in the MCU and see on what level he's returning. Will he still be a villain, and how did he escape the river he supposedly drowns in at the end of Spider-Man 2? Number 2. Venom. With the post-credits scene from Venom Let There Be Carnage, this is a character that many of us expect to see in Spider-Man No Way Home, or at least somewhere in the MCU. Although to be fair, Spider-Man really makes the most sense here when we're talking about when and where this character would be expected to show up. Tom Hardy's Venom is a bit of a hot mess, which is also why I cannot wait to see what will happen if we get both him and Tom Holland's Spider-Man together on the same screen. Venom, of course, does seem to break through to a world where Spider-Man's identity has just been revealed by the Daily Bugle. We even see Tom Holland's face on the TV screen when we see that reveal, so it seems very likely that these two will be meeting up again somewhere in the MCU. Hopefully Venom doesn't lick Spider-Man when they do meet up, because I'm not ready for those weird fanships. Number 1. Norman Osborn. Obviously, Willem Dafoe's version of Green Goblin is still something all of us remember with extreme fondness. No matter how you feel about the Raimiverse, you probably still love Willem Dafoe and his portrayal of Norman Osborn. Will Norman be coming to the MCU? It seems super likely just based on all the teases that we've gotten. Will he be played by Willem Dafoe? It's what many of us are expecting as the multiverse gets cracked wide open, likely as a result of Doctor Strange's spell backfiring, possibly because he was so distracted by Peter's constant rechanging of the parameters of that spell he was attempting to cast, which would of course warp reality. Green Goblin is one of the most iconic Spider-Man villains out there, if not the most iconic. I would say the most iconic, but some people might disagree. So it'd be really awesome to see him return in the current film franchise. Who are your favorite alternate Spider-Man characters? Which characters from the Spider-Verse would you like to see enter the MCU? Would you also like to see a bunch of alternate Mays? Madam Web Aunt May, anyone? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Alright, number 10. Batmite. If you've heard of the extremely weirdly named Mr. Mxyzptlk, then you have a small understanding of the reality warping imps who inhabit the 5th dimension. This Batman megafan is basically a small childlike imp who wears a loosely fitting homemade batsuit with a black lightning bolt symbol. But don't let his goofy looks trick you. He has nearly limitless magical abilities. He's not technically a hero, but he's also definitely not strictly a villain. A being of this level of power can't really be either because there's no way it would lose in whatever it wanted to do. He idolizes Batman and just wants to see him in action. So when Batman gets angry with him for being a nuisance, he usually sets things straight and just leaves, which is honestly kind of adorable. Number 9. Dino Cop. We have a few anthropomorphized characters on this list, but none of the others are dinosaurs. Dino Cop is from Earth 41, which is an Earth containing characters who are all pastiches of heroes from Image Comics. He is Rex Stegman, a humanoid dinosaur-like character who is also a police officer, supposed to be the DC equivalent to Savage Dragon. He is absolutely dedicated to preserving the peace in his undinosaur blue-collar worker way. He teams up with another superhero from Earth 41, Spore, who is supposed to be like Spawn, but more planty. I don't think his powers really matter too much when we talk about the weirdness of this character, but they are super strength. That's kind of it. He has increased stamina and is kind of pretty intelligent, but you know, nothing super. I think a dinosaur man hybrid police officer is weird enough to make this list on his own, so there you go.
Number 8. Ultimate Hulk. Let's be real, when I think of multiversal monster versions of the Hulk, I often think of Ultimate Hulk of Earth 1610, aka the Ultimate Universe. Here, Hulk was less a hero and more just, kind of a brute. In fact, at one point, the Ultimates, who are basically this Earth's version of the Avengers, even had to fight against, not with the Hulk. The Hulk would eventually go on to join the Ultimates team, I'll give him that, but let's not forget that he's a cannibalistic beast who also makes some of the most violent threats when he's angry. Even Bruce Banner wasn't as altruistic in this universe, initially hoping to create the next super soldier serum so that he might be able to increase his own strength and power. However, instead he created a Hulk serum, which turned him into the Hulk because he was all about testing that serum on himself. It's even implied that during his first transformation that he may have actually caused the death of Mary and Richard Parker, the parents of Spider-Man. Peter Parker, so yeah.
Number 7. Marvel Zombies. It's an entire pantheon of characters, from Spider-Man to Hulk to Captain America, but all zombified. The zombie versions of beloved heroes were first introduced in the pages of Ultimate Fantastic Four and became instant hits. In typical Marvel marketing genius, Marvel spun the zombies into their own book written by none other than Robert Kirkman. Robert Kirkman is the same bearded guy behind a television show you might know called The Walking Dead. The comics ran from December 2005 to April 2006. It starts in an alternate Earth called Earth 2149, where an unknown hero crash lands from another dimension. He comes with a quote, hunger, which infects the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four, along with basically every other major superhero you can think of. It's intense, and the adventures of the zombie heroes usually have more mayhem than most mainstream comics do in their entire run. It's all about damage and impact, and oh boy does Kirkman deliver on that. Peter Parker eats Aunt May. I'm serious, look it up. After an episode of the Disney Plus series called What If Zombies, there were talks of Disney also creating a spin-off series based on and named after the Marvel Zombies, so keep an eye out.
Number 6. The Yeti. This Yeti is relegated to another universe because of the series it appears in, which was intended to be, good for young readers and children, and which was said to exist outside of the main continuity. This Yeti we are talking about here appears in Spidey Super Stories in issue 16. Oh boy. In this team-up book, we see Spider-Man go on adventures that are more kid-friendly when it comes to reading, ideally therefore serving the purpose of helping kids learn how to read, which is important. The Yeti hails from Earth of 57780, and while he might seem like a monster by the end of the story, Spider-Man, also of Earth 57780, seems to have ascertained that the Yeti really is not a bad guy, but is just homesick. He's just stealing a lot of ice cream. So he attempts to help the Yeti by getting him safely home so he can be cold again. Yay.
Number 5. Morbius, the living vampire. It's Morbius' world and we're just living in it. He first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 101 in 1971. The story goes, in a desperate attempt to save his own life as he suffers from a rare blood disease, Dr. Mike Morbius turns to a cure that uses vampire bat DNA because of course he does. It mutates him into a half-vampire, half-human monster. It's Morbiclock out there, and Morbius was actually initially kind of a bad guy. He fought Spider-Man and Blade before becoming a vigilante justice sort of anti-hero who struggles with the insatiable lust for blood. He's also desperate to find the cure to his vampirism. Honestly, in the comics, Morbius looks way scarier and monstrous than the Laughingstock movie. I think it's one of those things where the cartoon and artistic medium is much better at portraying the monster than Jared Leto is.
Number 4. MCU Gargantos. Gargantos is one of the monsters from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness that I thought, might be one of the big bads of that movie. Instead, I was wrong, and the beast was used simply as a distraction. Seemingly modeled after the comic book character Shuma-Gorath, Disney and Marvel decided against using the name of that character for copyright reasons, and so instead decided to use a name that solely belonged to them. Enter Gargantos. Although in the comics, Gargantos is less of a magical monster and instead is kinda like your typical multi-tentacled, one-eyed sea monster. In the film, it takes the combined efforts of Sorcerer Supreme Wong and Dr. Stephen Strange to defeat the beast, and Strange even pulls out some magical monster tricks of his own to stop Gargantos. While Gargantos appears in a multiversal film, him being based off of Shuma-Gorath would likely also make him a multiversal monster just straight up.
Number 3. Ghost Rider. Who could forget Johnny Blaze, one of the Ghost Riders set out to hunt down earthly baddies and drag them kicking and screaming to hell where they belong. The legacy of the Ghost Rider began in the pre-Marvel age with a ghostly cowboy who hunted the prairie of the American frontier. But the modern version is a stunt biker, Johnny Blaze, who becomes possessed by the demon Zarathos and becomes a flame-headed skeleton with a cool bike and fancy leather jacket, hunting down bad guys in the name of vengeance. At times, he's the bad guy himself, being the not polished hero that has no problem taking lives. At others, he fights with the other Marvel heroes to take down bigger foes. I mean, he looks bad. Can we be honest here? And he's definitely one of my favorite Marvel monsters.
Number 2. Strange Supreme. Strange Supreme is the Dark Doctor Stephen Strange we see as is showcased in the Disney Plus What If streaming series in the season 1 episode, What If Doctor Strange Lost His Heart Instead of His Hands? In this episode, Strange becomes obsessed with getting back Christine Palmer after losing her in a car accident instead of, losing his hands. Because Christine was his heart. Get it? Because her death is considered an absolute point in time, the spirit of the Ancient One returns to Strange to remind him that he cannot do anything to bring her back. Strange doesn't like that answer and is like, I'm still gonna do stuff, so he gets split in twain, with one half of him choosing to do whatever it takes to get Christine back, because the Ancient One's like, I'm not gonna let that happen, just cut you in half. This prompts him to turn to the dark arts, absorbing various creatures and monsters from the universe in order to get as much power as is needed to reverse Christine's death. In the end, this Strange of the multiverse becomes more monster than man, defeating his other half by reabsorbing him and breaking the universe to bits when he disregards all warnings and brings Christine back to life anyways once more. Doesn't even work out well because Christine's like, dude, you're like super evil, I'm like not here for this.
Number 1. Shuma Gorath. Quote, before all was, I was. Before time was, I waited. I fed on the screaming souls of the universe. I drank the spoiled milk of dead stars. I am the emptiness outside all understanding. I am Shuma Gorath. Is a pretty sweet way to introduce yourself. His character design is next to none as one of the great old ones who first appeared in a 1972 comic called Journey into Mystery Volume 2. This tentacle monster more so looks like a freak of nature than a typical monster. He's the ruler of hundreds of dimensions and comes to the Earth realm millions of years ago along with the other old ones. Around 1 million BC, he was banished from Earth by a time traveler sorcerer named Sea-Sneg. It was witnessed by Doctor Strange, who hoped to defeat the Ancient One so his master didn't have to die, but obviously it never really works out like that. But then Shuma Gorath reappears and becomes the main foe of Doctor Strange. While we can get into his whole villain arc with Doctor Strange, I would prefer to look at the other reality he appeared in with Earth 30847. He became an unlikely savior of Earth, and upon accepting that they thought of him as a hero, he ended up hosting a Japanese game show called the Super Monster Awesome Hour, which honestly, vibes.
Number 10. Gorgon. If you remember the weirdest DC Multiverse superheroes video, which you should check out, I talked about a pastiche of the Incredible Hulk in DC Comics called Big Baby from Earth 8. He was part of a team called the Retaliators, who were supposed to be a joke version of the Avengers. This universe also had a team of villains called the Extremists, and on that team was a Dr. Octopus type character named Gorgon. While Gorgon did utilize technological enhancements, I think his octopus likeness comes in the form of his prehensile hair. The hair tentacles he uses and his role as a scientist mixed with his weight and oddly familiar glasses all come together to really evoke a Dr. Octopus likeness, which is just weird enough to make me double take. He is also familiar enough that I can't really put him any higher on this list, so there's that. Number 9. Dex Star. Or Dex-Star, or Dexter, or Dex-Star, Dex-Starer. Cats can be ruthless, cold, and scary at times, I'll admit that. But while the Red Lantern of Sector 2814, Dex-Star, is an irrationally rage-filled kitty, it's all because he loved his owner. Dex-Star's origin shows the cat Dexter with his owner when she is attacked by robbers who broke into her home. While Dexter tried his best to scratch the attacker, he ended up ending the life of Dexter's owner. When the police showed up on the scene, Dexter was kicked out into the streets so as to not contaminate the scene. Now, 2 rascals from the streets found Dexter when he was trying to sleep, put him in a sack, and threw him into a river. Now that is one hell of a sequence of events, and all this happening filled the poor little kitty with enough rage that it caught the attention of Atrocitus, who called out to him and made him a Red Lantern. With this newfound power of the Red Lantern ring, the Rage Kitty exacted his sweet revenge on the hoodlums and flew to say goodbye to his owner one last time, saying, in his little cat language, "I find who hurt you, I kill. I good kitty." I love this cat, but I also wouldn't dare mess with it. Ever.
Number 8. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Wonder Woman, War of the Gods. I don't even know what to really make of this multiversal story. All I can tell you is buckle in because this Dark Multiverse story is Yeah, dark. To be fair to this one shot though, I don't really even know what to make of the War of the Gods story in the main continuity, which I also found a little confusing, so it makes sense that this is where I would be as well with the Dark Multiverse version. A little confused. In this story, the Amazons of Themyscira end up in a war with the United States. When Diana is pulled into a battle with Hecate as a result of these events, where in the main continuity Hecate was defeated by Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, here she just ends up planting a seed within Diana's mind. Diana defeats her, but only temporarily. Following the death of Hippolyta, her mother, Diana is left weak, fearful, alone, and resentful, and this is when Hecate is able to take over. Unable to free her, all of Wonder Woman's friends die trying to. The only way to contain Hecate Wonder Woman is with magic, and many of her magical colleagues actually die in the attempt to do so. Hecate as such ends up chained, but of course so is Diana, unable to find the hope to escape her own internal prison. Of course, like most dark multiversal tales, we end on a pretty dark and tragic note. But that's okay, Zatanna's never gonna give up. Number 7. JLA Act of God. Admittedly, this is a cool premise, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense, which is what's weird about it. In JLA Act of God, an Elseworlds 3-issue miniseries, we get to explore a world where all the heroes of Earth have simultaneously lost their powers. Well, at least almost all of them anyways. How did this happen? Black light? Somehow the world being hit with a flash of black light results in almost everyone losing their powers. I guess normally superheroes don't go to raves or anything, where black light is, I feel like, very common. Although this is attributed to the black light, some might call it an act of God. A later on, very suddenly, devoutly Christian Diana Prince at least would probably claim that. Diana, haven't you met gods? How does that make sense? What's really ridiculous is in the first issue, as we go through the moment this happened, the world over, we get to see just how diverse not only everyone's powers are, but also when it comes to the source of their powers, just how diverse it is. In one page we go from Steel losing complete control of his systems and suit as he plummets to his doom, to Aquaman losing his ability to connect with the creatures of the sea telepathically and his ability to breathe underwater. At the same time, Kyle Rayner also has lost control of his Green Lantern ring, which seems to now just be, I guess, a really unique and trendy looking accessory. How could a flash of black light affect almost everyone in this same way? Like I said, it's a cool premise, kinda wonky execution though. How is Steel affected by this? Didn't Steel make his suit? I'm confused. Number 6. Facets. What happens when we get to see the Teen Titans as they be in a fantasy setting? Well, a whole lot of weirdness. Raven of course ends up evil, known as a deadly and beautiful sorceress, Queen Raven. She creates her own loyal servant and accomplice with Victor Stone, or at least she tries to, transforming him permanently into a cyborg. It turns out this isn't all that Raven's been up to though. She has a whole collection of prisoners whom she has transformed in some way, and when Cyborg refuses to join her, she also contemplates holding him there with the rest of them. So apparently she does this a lot. Seems like her deals with people don't usually work out. I guess she's just hoping that one day that'll change. She's like, I'll just keep doing it. Eventually someone will be loyal to me. If I try it enough times, it's gotta work. In this story, Coriander is a prisoner of some goblin mages who use cosmic energy to transform her into Starfire. The comic features an all-out battle between Raven and Starfire, joined of course by the rest of the Titans. Nightwing goes on a trip inside Phantasm's cloak, literally looks like he's tripping out, and eventually Trigon joins the party when he is summoned by his daughter Raven. You can check it all out in the 1994 New Titans Annual. It's weird. It's definitely weird. Also, some of these outfits are interesting. Number 5. Superman at Earth's End. I don't even know where to begin with this comic. Oh boy. Okay, so Superman here is one of the first iterations of course, the old man heroes to come that we've come to love so much. See, before there was Old Man Logan, there was Old Man Supes. In this Elseworld story, we are in a post-apocalyptic future where machines rule supreme and mutants basically run amok. Also, there is an army of Batmen and vicious biker gangs because, I mean, why not? The year I believe is 2102. So possibly this is what we'll be dealing with in just over 80 years time. Honestly, the way things are going, I could maybe see that being our future. Superman is recharging and recuperating his strength when he hears about the plan to nuke Gotham City. He aims to save the city, but of course without doing any killing, because you know, he's Superman. And of course, no guns, because he's Superman. Except for the part where he uses guns to kill people. Except for that part. Mostly robo and really bad people though, so I guess for Supes it doesn't count. It features the famous "I am a man" memeable moment, which actually was shouted in response to an android by the way, so out of context it's really weird, but within context it actually like kinda makes some sense. It's still pretty weird, but it's not as weird. Also, shortly after claiming that he doesn't need weapons, Superman chooses to wield a ridiculous mega gun known as the Expunger. It's crazy. I just love that he's like, I don't need weapons because I have powers. I would never do that. And then like flip to like 2 pages later and he's like, look at this giant expunger. I'm gonna use this mega gun. Number 4, All-Star Batman and Robin. Not so much a story as a full series, but I have other full series on this list, so it's fine. All-Star Batman and Robin consists of 10 issues, all of which are pretty weird when it comes to the depiction and characterization of a lot of our favorite superheroes, villains, and their allies even. Once again, we get a super jacked version of Joker in this comic. We also get a version of Vicky Vale who seems far more obsessed with Superman's manhood and dates with Bruce Wayne than any kind of serious reporting. And of course, then there are Batman and Robin. What a dynamic. Batman in this comic is the worst kind of hero, an entitled one. This is the version who refers to himself as the goddamn Batman and makes Dick eat rats and sleep in the Batcave initially. Because he's Batman and he can do that. He also torments Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, by painting himself, Robin, and the entire room and corridor yellow, and also serves and consumes yellow food and drink around him, with Batman enjoying some lemonade and Robin devouring what appears to be an all-yellow ice cream cone. All-Star Batman and Robin has to be one of the weirdest multiverses out there. And every time I go back to it, I'm like, what is happening? What is this characterization? Number 3, JLA created equal. Okay, so All-Star Batman and Robin is the not so great kind of weird, but JLA created equal is just the weird kind of weird. In this 2-part Elseworld story, we get a glimpse into a world where all the men, or almost all the men, were killed off by an unexpected and sudden plague. The only 2 left alive are Superman and Lex Luthor in this reality, and yet for all the powerful women who remain, this book sure manages to still be about the male characters within it. In Created Equal, Superman attempts to help the rest of the new, almost all-female JLA figure out a way to repopulate the Earth. I say almost because Superman's still there, so yeah. The main concern is how to ensure the survival of the human male gender, as if they made clones, with their technology and resources, they'd actually only be able to produce female ones. I guess they can't like tamper with the genes, they can't like tamper with the DNA, or I don't know how you make clones anyway, so I probably shouldn't tell other people how to do it. Eventually, Lois Lane and Clark Kent end up conceiving a son who is born and named Adam. He accidentally hugs his mother to death, and then Lex, being Lex, unleashes a plan to take control of all the young men who were created and raised on Themyscira, thanks to Adam's existence and his resilience. Also, he makes them all bald, because this is Lex Luthor, so yeah. Oh, what a weird story. Come and join me, and also I'll be bald, because you all have lovely hair and it offends me. Number 2, a Batman Reptilian. Ah yes, the story of an alien baby that belongs to Killer Croc because he was influenced by aliens while inside his mother's womb, which is how he's even mutated and also makes him like, I guess, a hybrid alien-human creation technically. In this beautiful yet bizarre story, Batman is attempting to track down whoever is killing all of his rogues. What he finds out though is that it isn't any one of the other villains, but Croc's baby that he just gave birth to. Killer Croc, of course, didn't know that he could do that. I mean, neither did we. It turns out that this is a result of him being part alien in origin, or being tampered with by aliens when he was like a fetus. The newborn babe, it turns out, just wants its mama, but for what purpose remains to be seen. Killer Croc can't nurture it, as you know, he doesn't have like the biological equipment for that. After we get through that whole slog of that's not gonna work, it's also implied that the giant alien monster baby wants Croc to mate with it. which is also thankfully out of the question when it comes to Croc's willingness, so thank goodness, because I thought, this better not be where this is going, oh my goodness. Did I mention that Batman is also a huge jerk throughout this entire series? Cause yeah, this is Garth Ennis behind the writing wheel, and that is very much a thing. Which I'm not surprised by, that's kind of Ennis' whole thing, so yeah. I actually like Batman being a butt in that story more than I like him being a butt in Frank Miller's All-Star, so yeah. Number 1, Batman Last Night on Earth. This one was where the thumb came from in part 1 of this list. I had intended to actually include this story there, but then I got distracted by the Batman and Lobo crossover. Understandably so, I think, because that's also super weird. But that's fine, because it just means that Last Night on Earth gets a higher spot on this list of bizarre multiversal DC stories. Batman Last Night on Earth is a book that exists outside of the continuity and belongs to the DC Black Label line. Also, Reptilian is part of that same line, just so you know. Black Label primarily is made up of titles that are more adult in terms of their content and their themes. Here, that translates to Batman wearing a straitjacket version of his suit in a post-apocalyptic future, where Joker is just a head in a jar. They also end up fighting giant monster baby Green Lantern constructs in issue number 1, just to give you a sense of the level of weird that we're dealing with here. But it's like a fun weird. It's like a, I'd recommend this weird. I give it 2 weird thumbs up. Number 10, Harry Osborn. This one's a dead friend. One of Peter's closest friends is Harry Osborn in the comics. Well, he is at least until he turns into a villain himself. Harry ends up dying at the end of Spider-Man 3, sacrificing himself to save Peter and inevitably redeeming himself. Peter forgives Harry for all that he has done, and he and Mary Jane kind of reluctantly get back together and attend Harry's funeral, mourning their former good friend and at one point, kind of villain. I mean, definitely villain. Harry in the Raimiverse is played by James Franco, but Dane DeHaan plays the character in the Amazing Spider-Man series. Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn becomes Green Goblin in the second film and is a secondary antagonist, in a film that, like Spider-Man 3, suffered from too many antagonists. I'm just saying. I don't think we'll be seeing James Franco reprise the role in the MCU for reasons, but there is still a chance that Dane DeHaan could reprise the role. I would be fine with that. I would be interested in seeing more Harry Osborn. I would be interested in seeing more Harry Osborn in some capacity in these movies, as long as we don't bring back Spider-Man's costume from the Amazing Spider-Man. I forgot how much I disliked that costume. I went back to those movies for this list and I was like, man, still don't like that costume. It's not for me. Number 9, Uncle Ben. Cliff Robertson, who originally played Uncle Ben, sadly passed away back in 2011, but we could still bring this character back. Martin Sheen is still alive and well, who played the character in the Amazing Spider-Man series, or there is a chance we can meet a new version of Uncle Ben from the past before he died in the current Spider-Man film series. After all, I mean, we never got to meet Tom Holland's Uncle Ben, if he ever had an Uncle Ben, although he's still Peter Parker, so while it goes unmentioned pretty much, we can assume he does, I think.
Number 8. Prez Rickard, a teenager born to literally become president. He was the youngest president ever elected thanks to the lower eligibility age in his comic book, Prez number 1 in 1973. As the young president, he fought legless vampires, a right-wing militia led by the descendants of George Washington, and evil chess players. His powers include advanced hand-to-hand combat, leadership, political science, and a healthy dash of charisma. His mother, Martha, another DC Martha mom, was his vice president, with his sister becoming his secretary and his Native American friend Eagle Free being appointed as head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Honestly, a pretty strange character, but also super inspiring, especially for younger readers, I'm guessing. Number 7. Uncle Sam, the spirit of America, bound to a talisman created by the founding fathers in an occult ritual, who would take physical form by merging with a dying patriot. And he needs you and your money. Pretty please. He lives as long as America does and has taken part in every American conflict. He was the Minuteman in the Revolutionary War. In the Civil War, he split into 2, Johnny Reb and Billy Yank, and in 1870 he officially became the Uncle Sam we all know and recognize. He's fought in World War I and World War II. Unsurprisingly, Uncle Sam's powers are proportionate to the United States' faith in the ideals of liberty and freedom. And that list of powers is long, so of course I will struggle to list them all out for you. Possession, immortality, interdimensional teleportation, invulnerability, limited clairvoyance, super leaping, size alteration, superhuman reflexes, superhuman speed, superhuman stamina, and last but not least, superhuman strength. Oh, and most importantly, he can detect the whereabouts of patriotic objects like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So watch out, Nicolas Cage. Number 6. Canterbury Cricket. After The Flash rewrote history in Flashpoint, this interesting character came to be in Flashpoint The Canterbury Cricket #1 in 2011. Jeremy Cricky, not to be confused with Jiminy Cricket, I'm sure, was a university student and con man until the Amazons attacked the country of England. He takes refuge in the Canterbury Cathedral but was tracked by an Amazonian soldier. He begs for his life from God when boom chicka bow, a flash of light appears caused by boo booms dropped from the Amazon ships. And when the dust settles, Jeremy has become the giant anthropomorphized cricket. Honestly, it's kind of terrifying. He looks like the prawns from District 9. Has anyone seen that movie? Anyways, as the newly dubbed Canterbury Cricket, Jeremy had become a patriotic hero, fighting for England until his last cricket chirp. Truly the best representation of the nation. America gets Uncle Sam, England gets a cricket. Number 5. Flex Mentallo. I mentioned the Doom Patrol in the last video, but we didn't actually talk about any of their members. We honestly should. One member, who I think deserves to make it onto this list, is Flex Mentallo. Flex here has the mysterious and hilarious power of muscle mystery, which allows him to alter reality by flexing different muscles. For example, flexing his scalenus minimus, Flex has the ability to survive in the vacuum of space for an extended amount of time. His other powers include enhanced senses, mind control, precognition, reality alteration, superhuman durability, superhuman strength, and telepathy. He is a close friend of Danny the Street, who was also in the last video, and his reviews on Google note him to be sweet and helpful. He first appeared in Doom Patrol in Volume 2, number 35 in 1990, and I think my favorite piece of art is the one with the title of Hero of the Beach, with someone in the background going, it's Flex Mentallo. Number 4. Dog Welder. Now look, weird isn't always pleasant. Unfortunately, for all of us, Dog Welder is about as bad as he sounds. He's a crime fighter, yes, a do-gooder, who haunts and maims evildoers by welding no longer living dogs to them. Dog Welder is a mysterious and demented member of Section 8, a superhero team, and he first appears in Hitman number 18. He keeps his face hidden behind a welding mask, and we never learn his true identity, but he seems to live in an alleyway that he sets traps for animals in. He also seems to have an endless supply of dogs of the afterlife to stick to people's faces. Even though he is apparently a hero, I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief knowing he met his demise in Section 8's final battle, and we don't need to see him again, ever. Alright, let's move on. Number 3. Matter Eater Lad. When an alien race has all their food infected by microbes, instead of going extinct, as you might expect, they evolve to be able to eat unlimited amounts of any form of matter to survive instead. Yes, welcome to Planet Pepto-Bismol. Oh, sorry, no, just Bismol. Home to Legion of Superheroes member Tenzil Kem, better known as Matter Eater Lad. The 15th member to join the Legion, Matter Eater has an ability you just wouldn't think would be useful. But if you get stuck inside somewhere, I can guarantee you want this guy on your team. He can eat through literally anything due to digestive enzymes. Thanks to how comic books just are, this ability has become more and more useful and in very random ways. For example, Bismolians don't possess any other superpowers really, but the ability to eat tons and tons of anything and digest it in literally seconds apparently translates into food energy that can give them, oh I don't know, super speed for example, or like when he ate through a whole asteroid in minutes. I just don't want to imagine how his bathroom breaks go. No thanks. Number 2. Liesl Pon. The Green Lantern Corps, actually every Lantern Corps really, has members of all different shapes and sizes. But what utterly baffles me personally is knowing the Green Lanterns have a super intelligent, justice-seeking smallpox virus on their roster. Assigned to Section 119, Liesl wasn't really able to join the other Lanterns in team meetings on the Green Lantern world, for the same reason your boss asks you to stay home if you've got a cold. The Green Lanterns aren't trying to get sick, really. Liesl Pon's partner in Sector 119 was Remus. Because Remus was a fatal victim of Despotellus, who is also a sentient virus, but part of the Yellow Lantern Corps, so evil. Despotellus infected Guy Gardner, and wanting revenge for the attack on her sector and the loss of Remus, Liesl Pon entered into Guy and the two bat battled with Liesel Pond, defeating the virus and capturing Despotellis, who Liesel brought back to Oa, the Green Lantern Corps doctor Saranik Natu, to work on a vaccine for. Number 1, Red Bee. When I think of all the animals that would make good sidekicks or super pets, bees are not my first choice. Think about it. As soon as they sting you, that's it. You need another bee to replace that one. Well, ain't it just the fitting coincidence that the trained bees used by Red Bee are a species of bee that don't die when they sting people. Not wasps though. They're bees, okay? Not wasps. Richard Raleigh, the first Red Bee, was a superhero during World War II that used a weapon that fired a sting shot. Ouch! And inside his utility belt, he carried a swarm of bees that he would use against villains. Again, someone tell Nicolas Cage to watch out. He first appeared in Hit Comics #1 in the 1940s. The second Red Bee would be his great niece, Jenna Raleigh. This Red Bee used 2 mechanical bees that fire electricity, a tech suit, and was mutated by alien insects to produce pheromones that she can use to control her bees. At least that makes more sense than training a colony of bees, right? I don't know.